And we're live!
Yay!
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, guys. Okay, so, wow, we already have comments coming in. Well, hi, you guys. So, we're so excited to have you joining us here on a Friday night. My name's Anna. I work for One More Page Books, who One More Page is the home store that is hosting the lovely Joanna Meyer. We're very excited to have her here. Yay! So I think we should introduce ourselves. What do you guys say to that?
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Joe?
Okay, so I am Joanna Ruth Meyer, author of the just released Into the Heartless Wood. My camera is mirror image, so it's kind of freaking out a little bit. I live in Mesa, Arizona, and it is too hot and sunny here for me almost always. So I like to write books about not the desert, aka the forest in this one. I like the slide across the screen thing going on there. But this is my fourth book, and it's a YA fantasy fourth book. I can't believe it. And it's sort of half of a gender swapped Beauty and the Beast, half of a Little Mermaid retelling. If the Little Mermaid happened to be a murderous tree, and it has a very soft cinnamon roll boy in it, and tree sirens, and fairy tale vibes, and spookiness.
Glorious.
All right. Okay, I'm going next. I'm Laura Weymouth. This is, hey, wake up. Wake up! I started a book event. Fred, here. Want a biscuit? This is Fred.
The best of dogs.
So Fred is here. I write books in addition to having a dog. They are, hang on, do the slide. The Light Between Worlds, which is very shiny, and Treason of Thorns, which is also very shiny. The Light Between Worlds is what I call a post-portal fantasy. It is essentially the story of what would it be like for a family like the Pevensies to come back from an adventure in another world and to readjust to life in ours. And A Treason of Thorns is about a girl whose family heritage is taking care of a sentient house, which essentially governs the magic system of the land and the countryside in her world. And it's about her struggle to save her house. And that's it for my books. So, Anna, you go.
So I love all six of these women's books. 6 books between the two of you. That is. So I am Anna Bright. In addition to working at One More Page Books, I write young adult fantasy. I have got a duology out, and I'll do like the slide together across. Ooh. Did that work at all?
Yes.
I've got The Beholder, which is the first book in the duology. It is a there and back again fairy tale about a girl whose stepmother, essentially, when her proposal is declined, says, okay, no worries. I've got a bunch of suitors for you to look into on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Come back with a ring or don't come back at all. So The Beholder is book 1 in that series, and The Boundless is book 2 in that series. So this is the there, and this is the back again. Ta-da!
Yay!
So, Joanna,
Yes.
do you want to tell us? So you've told us a little bit about Into the Heartless Wood, which is so beautiful and which we love so much. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your influences as you were writing this book?
Yeah, so my in-laws have a cabin up north of here, and it's in the woods. And we go there as often as possible, especially in the summer, to escape the heat a little bit. And I was up there writing Beyond the Shadowed Earth, which is my 3rd book. And the idea of tree sirens just kind of popped into my head. Just kind of the whole, it'd be interesting, tree sirens. And so I wrote it down in my phone, little idea note folder thing, and let it kind of percolate around a little bit. And then it joined in with a conversation I had with my husband about what a gender swap Beauty and the Beast would look like. So we were talking about if that would really work, and my husband said that it would take a very special boy to fall in love with a monster because, generally speaking, men are a little bit shallow. So Owen is my very special boy. And he falls in love with my tree siren monster girl. And so there's just lots of trees were inspiring. It sort of started off as a gender swap Beauty and the Beast, kind of a spring pad, but then in the second half, it turns into really more of a Little Mermaid retelling, because Theron, my monster girl, she wants to be human, and she wants to have a soul, and she wants to belong to the human world and kind of reject what her mother made her, and she does not want to be a monster anymore. So those are kind of some of the themes that I explore in the book. But yeah, so it was basically just born in the forest, as many books are.
Born in the forest, as many books are, as is our ancient custom.
Yes.
I love that. I love Saren as a character. I loved that tension between who she was born to be and who she wants to be. And I think that's something that readers would find really relatable. Like, who you believe that you are and who you were brought up to be and who it is that you wish to be instead. That really resonated with me when I read the book. Thought that was beautiful, the way that you did that.
Yeah, it was a really interesting concept to explore, and to just, it was fascinating to put myself into the head of that character, because for one thing, I got to use lots of like nature and tree metaphors, which was really fun. And it was just really interesting to look at the world through the eyes of a monster who didn't want to be one anymore.
What about Owen's love for all things star related?
I love that part.
Where did that come from?
So that also came from up north at the Prescott cabin, because across the street from that house, the neighbors have an observatory. And so they have this like little tower like in the woods. And I thought that was just really inspiring. And so I wrote that down on my phone too. I was like, Star Boy and Tree Girl, maybe there's something there. I don't know. So yeah. And you can see the stars like so clearly up there because you're out of the city. And it's just, so it's just, I don't know, those two key factors just kind of conflated to make this book, basically. Because I feel like most of my books start with characters or like kind of a vivid image that kind of all mesh together until I realize that I need to probably find a plot for them.
No, you don't. I think that that's false. No, we don't need any of those here.
No.
This isn't a thriller. We don't need plot.
Exactly.
I was really impressed too. So like I feel like sometimes these beautiful visual elements, it's very easy for them to just sort of stay beautiful visual elements. But you really don't. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm gonna, not do that because I just blurt things out. But so much is built into Owen's occupation. It's really, really interesting. I was like, oh, this is a nice thing. And then I was like, bah, later when I realized what was going on.
Yeah, it all kind of starts with that concept of there's this boy and his father, and they're mapping the stars for the king. And why are they doing that? And what could be the reasons for that? And I kind of go on sort of rabbit trail world building and plot building and just kind of explore ideas to find out where they might lead or where they could possibly come from. So I'm a big believer in notebook brainstorming, and you got to write down everything in your head, and maybe one of those things will make sense enough to help out with your plot.
Or at the very least, like make sense the next day when you're like,
yeah.
what could this possibly mean? Also, somebody commented no plot, only vibes, and I'm living for it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I think that your process and the way that you think everything through in advance, Joanna, really contributes to the fact that I always feel like your books have these layers to them, because you do a lot of retellings. And then in addition to it being a retelling of a story in our world that we're familiar with, you usually then have some sort of story that's woven into the book itself, where there's a story the characters are familiar with that mirrors the story in our world that you're writing a retelling of, which I think is so fascinating. And I love how you do that.
So I don't know that I actually do that on purpose, but I'm glad that it comes across that way. Sometimes I feel like my books are smarter than I am, because readers will be like, did you mean to put this thing in that ties in with this other thing? And I'll be like, yes, I totally meant to do that.
I'm the opposite, where I like horribly overthink everything and put in these like tiny little insignificant details that I know nobody is ever going to catch. But I'm like, it's there for me. I know it's there.
Oh man.
What about you, Anna? Do you put things in by accident or like aggressively on purpose? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I fall under the I will research something for 6 hours only to like include it in one paragraph like of the book, and then it probably gets cut like in past pages because I decided it interrupts the flow of the page. But I knew that the logic surrounding it was all airtight.
Yeah.
Because I'm that person also who like wakes up in the middle of the night and I'm like, did I remember to check what language that character would have like historically have spoken? Like, no anxiety.
Yeah.
But as far as like real world influences, I feel like, I don't know, like Joanna, for the last 2 books that I've written, I started with fairy tales too. For me, they were more like plot training wheels, because I know Laura has been writing since she could, hold a pencil in her little fingers. I did not start not writing my stories down until I got to be, almost in my 20s. I was just that little kid who had like a really like weirdly vivid imagination and was like telling myself fanfic in my head before I knew it was fanfic. So the fairy tales were almost like training wheels, like plot structure. Again, like as we've established, plot is hard. So the fairy tales were kind of my my framework. And then I think my biggest influence has been my love of languages and my love of travel. Not that I am doing a whole lot of travel these days, and not that I have really studied my languages since college, but I don't know. I love making a universe way bigger than it has to be. So
I feel like, just as an aside while we're talking about languages, so because Joanna's book has a facet to it that is based on Wales and on Welsh, like a lot of the names and the linguistic structure come from Welsh. I think it was me who had the idea in the first place, decided that we would all learn Welsh on Duolingo, which I did for like 2 days. And I think Joanna has been doing every single day.
I'm still doing it, yeah.
it's amazing.
So faithfully just learning Welsh this entire time. And as usual, I quit after like 2 days. And
it's like addicting. It feels good to know that my brain can still learn new stuff, even in my old age here.
Now you're probably secretly fluent in Welsh.
Also, that app is slightly evil. Like, it has all these weird reward structures and will punish you if you show up.
The owl will find you.
It's very upsetting. I had to like roll up the emails, the notification. It's like, language requires everyday practice. Anna, where have you been? Anna, I'm not showing up to class. I'm like, okay, this was just a thing I did for fun. Please leave me alone.
Calm down, owl. Yeah.
Don't judge me for the fact that I'm 2 days into learning 12 different languages. Duo, the owl.
Duo, or Duolingo, as his name is in Welsh, which I did not.
Oh, are you serious?
That's his, like the Welsh. name. Yes.
What's his name? Say it again.
Dewi, Dewi lingo. So like every
wow.
language that you
I
study,
did not realize that until
it like
just now.
adapts his name slightly. So like in French, it's like duo, and
Yeah.
in Spanish, it's like duo. But yeah, the Welsh is like Dewi lingo, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I did not get it for a while.
There you go. Joanna,
That's so funny. Yeah.
you should say something in Welsh.
Yeah.
All right. My pronunciation is terrible. Terrible. Just like
That's
atrocious.
okay. Nobody here knows anything.
Okay. Got I bonnet.
What's that?
You got a bonnet.
Can I have a cup of tea?
Oh, yes, you can.
Very, very important. Very important.
You can have some tea here.
Cheers.
Yes. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Yes. Toast to Joanna.
Cheers.
Hitting the kettle pretty hard, as we like to say, Joanna.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. But yeah, I love the Welsh language, like the sound of it. The spelling is completely like unhinged.
How did this language grow up 90 miles from London? I have no idea.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, and I don't know if I can grab it from here, but I always try and come up with kind of a culture, not really a culture, but like I can't think of words, but a place to draw names from for my world so that all sounds like it comes from the same world. And so I think like Saren and Owen's names came first, and I was like, oh, they're Welsh names, so let me use a bunch of more Welsh stuff. And now suddenly this book is Welsh. And so like the countries and all the towns and stuff, they're just straight up Welsh words. They're like not clever at all if you look them up. But I got this. I don't know if I can reach it from my shelf here. Moving out of the forest.
Going on a field trip.
I bought this on Amazon, like used for like $6 or something. And so I just like looked up, what does such and such mean in Welsh? And if it sounded cool enough, then I was like, yes, that can be my country name or my character name or whatever.
I love that you actually bought a Welsh English dictionary on Amazon, whereas anybody else would be like, oh, I'll just Google Translate it.
I did that too, and
I love it.
That's how I came up with the Wood Witch's name, the Gwithin, because it's it's not a real word, but it has an association with tree, and I found that like on Google Translate. I'm like, okay, well that sounds really cool, and that is definitely the name of the Wood Witch.
I like that.
Yeah,
well, that like consonant too. There are a lot of, for anybody who's watching, there are like consonant and phonetic sounds in Welsh that do not appear in English. Like truly, it's when you start. Okay, so there's a TV show, a Welsh TV show available on BritBox called 35 Days. And this is my first exposure to Welsh language. And I remember being like, none of this sounds anything like English or any other language I've ever like spoken, practiced, whatever. So it's, it's
That's
great.
like Irish Gaelic. Tyler and I went to Ireland one time, and when we got home, I was like, I'm going to learn to speak Irish Gaelic. And I opened the app on Duolingo and, got to the language. And the very first thing they wanted to teach you to say was thank you. And it was just like this incomprehensible babble that came out of my phone. And I was like, okay, it was a good idea in theory, and in practice, we're not going to do that.
What? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I love it.
Well, thank you in Welsh is diolch. I can't pronounce it, but yeah. See?
Diolch.
Yes, diolch.
Diolch yn fawr.
That must have been in the day 3 lesson that you guys did, and I didn't.
I kept up with it for a little while. And then I started feeling under the weather in like November, and I was suddenly like, okay, we're streamlining. I don't feel like doing anything extra. So another thing I think we should talk about is just like your favorite bits of your recent books. Like what are the things that you're just most pleased with?
For Heartless, I loved writing Saren's point of view scenes. Saren is my tree siren monster girl. And it didn't happen until I think maybe the third draft, if you read the book or if you even look at it, Saren's chapters are kind of all like, oops, you can't see that. This mirror image. Nope, not happening.
Oh, I
But it's
love
kind
that. They were kind of like stream of consciousness almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like
It was so
sort of
cool.
poetry, sort of stream of consciousness. And it was like, it was really neat to kind of write in that style and see if I could convey all the correct emotion with just like really spare, very specific language. So that was really, I really enjoyed writing her characters. Her
I
chapters.
loved that because it really brought home that she's not human, that she's like fundamentally different, not just externally, but internally from the way that we are, and that her mind works differently as well as her body. I really liked that.
Yeah.
Very artistic and deftly done.
I'm trying to remember. I read something many, many years ago, and it was talking about how like animal thought processes are like pure instinct, like food, water, protection, and it almost felt a bit like that. Like obviously, Saren is not an animal, but she's very much not a human. Her thought processes. There is like an instinctiveness to like her existence, especially in the beginning. But I think you communicate really well. It was beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I just tried to get into that. Like, she's very just kind of, she was part of the forest. So, she notices like what the animals are doing and how the trees are feeling. And she's just very like, just like in tune with nature, I guess. So
did the violets have a meaning? Like, do they mean something specific in the language of flowers? Why did you choose violets for her?
I chose violets. Funny story, because they are purple and I think they're cool and I like, and it's my second favorite color after green. But I just learned yesterday that violets are poisonous, which is like, where it really works out. Like one of those things like, I definitely meant to do that.
Yeah.
Sneaky violet.
There you go. Well,
Yeah.
hang on. I really want to know what they actually mean in the language of flowers now.
Yes.
Somebody go Google that and comment it to us. Tell us what the language of flowers says violets mean.
Yes, if you do, I will give Fred a biscuit on your behalf. I'll tell him it's from you.
And Fred is the best dog. Fred, I have watched Fred gently herd children around a living room. I would let Fred herd me anywhere.
Me too.
I am still proud that, Laura, we were at your house when Fred arrived. We were there.
You were. It's true. It was the weekend of the book launch for The Light Between Worlds. So my first book was coming out. I had the launch party for it scheduled. I had 4 out-of-town guests staying at my house, 2 of whom were Anna and Joanna, and 2 of whom were some other very close friends of ours. And the day that they arrived, I was like, oh, guess what? Spontaneously, I'm getting a dog today. And they were all like, maybe that's not a good idea. And I was like, no, once you meet him, you'll understand. And then Fred came over and they all understood.
Yeah, it's true.
I laid in his dog bed the first night we were there. I was trying to get your children to like me.
Okay, wait, Bev says, violet symbolizes innocence, modesty, and true everlasting love. It can also symbolize faith, spirituality, mysticism, and remembrance.
What?
See?
That is amazing.
Look at that.
Now, okay. I would not say that Saren is a paragon of modesty, but
all of the other things. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a little bit mind-blowing.
Fred will get a biscuit from Bev. I just want you to know he's sleeping on top of my books.
Oh.
Over my books because he loves them. But I'm going to wake him up because he would love to wake up for a biscuit. Fred.
Oh my goodness.
Speaking of, this is from Bev. Say thank you.
Aww.
There.
Speaking of this very active comment section we have going here, feel free to ask questions. We're going to wait until the end, no surprise. But, if you've got a burning question, just pop it right in there. And in, maybe like another 15 minutes or so, we will get to your questions. I don't know why I'm doing this, but it's fine. So Laura, what are your favorite parts of your recent project? Why do you look like I just called on you in class?
I don't know. I wasn't expecting to contribute meaningfully. I was just going to sit here and make jokes and knit. Okay. Well, so my most recent book was A Treason of Thorns, in which the main character is named Violet. And I also did not know the meaning of violets in the language of flowers. But she has this large sentient murder house, Burley House, which I am in love with, and which my most favorite bad reviews on Goodreads for the book are always people going, it's weird that Violet's like in love with her house. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm in love with houses. So anyway, if you don't understand being in love with a house or a location, this is not the book for you. But if you do understand that, it's a great book for you. And my favorite part was definitely getting to write Burley House and getting to write the magic system of like, how would this house actually communicate with people when it doesn't have, a language or words for the most part. So it communicates through like fires backing up and smoking and growing flowers through the floorboards, just the way that your house would talk to you if your house could talk to you. And that was my favorite part of writing A Treason of Thorns.
Burley is perfect, and I love it too.
I love Burley so much. Well, Anna, what's your favorite part? Now I'm putting you on the spot. What's your favorite part of your most recent book?
I don't know.
You knew we prepared this. You knew we were going to talk about this.
I was thinking about what Joanna was going to say.
This is why I looked wall-eyed. Okay.
Okay. My favorite parts. I had a scene where I got to put Alexi in guy liner because I was listening to a lot of Panic at the Disco while I was drafting. I was thinking about Brendan Urie and his guy liner. I don't know. I think that's it. I think that's all I've got is Brendan Urie and guy liner.
That checks out.
That makes sense. Yep.
So there was a line. There was a line in The Boundless, and it is basically there is this big night that is kind of like it's kind of like the Purge. Basically, it's a night of lawlessness, the night of a lunar eclipse, and basically the premise of the rule of this evening is if you can take it and it's yours come dawn, it's yours permanently. And I was very proud of this concept, and two, there's this scene where I've got people like fighting over like gold and gems, like that have like a chest has like burst open in the streets, and these people are like scrabbling over treasure, and people are stuffing things in their pockets, and one girl starts reaching into the pockets of her neighbor. And so the woman whose pockets are being picked starts like swallowing the gold and the gems because she doesn't want to, and it's just, it was really creepy, but I came up with the idea for a different book forever ago. And I was like, I have to use this now. Like, when else would I just was very interested in like, what makes us human? And what are like, what's the difference between being a human and being an animal? And can you choose to shake off what makes you human? I don't know. There's a lot going on, but I was very, very proud of the creepiness of that scene. I think
I love that concept. That's such a good concept. That's how I got my children, by the way, was on the night of a lunar eclipse when whatever you grabbed by morning, you could keep it. No, don't report it.
You just went out into the forest and were like, this baby is mine now.
Exactly.
Amazing. So I'm sitting here drinking my tea. I've seen mugs in both of your hands. I need to know what everybody's drinking.
I am drinking Harney and Sons black currant tea with a little bit of half and half. My sister and I both got each other insulated mugs for Christmas, unbeknownst to the other. And so now I'm addicted to having always hot tea.
Yeah.
It doesn't get cold if you're like in the zone and forgetting that you have tea. So it's fabulous.
I like lukewarm tea.
Ew.
I just do. Hot things burn my tongue.
Do you remember what I told you about you and tea? Like,
Oh
5
yeah,
minutes before we started.
you told me gently that I'm like tea white trash, and I'm like, I am. It's true.
Why don't you tell us about your tea, Anna?
So my tea currently, I'm cutting back on caffeine. So first of all, I'm drinking PG Tips it's the second to last bag out of a massive box that I brought back from the UK the last time I was there. But because I'm cutting back on caffeine right now, I use the tea bag in the morning. And because I'm, frugal to the bone, I save the tea bag for later. And usually that means that like 45 minutes later, I have another cuppa. But today I forgot. That's a lie. I did not forget. I got back in the bed at 11 o'clock today. And so now I'm drinking from the tea bag that I used at 10 o'clock this morning.
Like a Depression era grandma.
Black tea with milk and sugar. Black
We
tea.
love you. That would be so weak with milk and sugar in it too. Oh my goodness.
It's good.
Whatever you say. I'm
It's
also
not much
black tea. Yeah.
It's got a teaspoon and a half of sugar in it. It's not much.
Oh, that's all right, I guess. I'm also drinking black tea. I have Earl Grey, and it has raw honey in it, and no milk and no cream, because that's gross to put dairy in tea, and I don't stand for it.
Don't you
Laura and I have an ongoing. Laura and I have an ongoing. Does milk belong in tea feud? I say that if it's good enough for the Queen of England,
Thank you.
I rest my case. So.
And I agree with the Queen on everything else, but not this.
Everything?
No, not everything. Foreign policy.
This is what we think about empire and commonwealth. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, okay. I agree with the Queen on having a lot of castles.
And
But not putting milk in your tea.
I wonder. So, I mean, tea came from India and from China. Is
Yes.
milk and tea a thing in like how it's originally, like how it's served in India and China? Like, I don't know. I don't know like what tea.
Originally, I know that now they normally put milk in masala, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm not well versed in it.
I was going to say, well, the Queen invented tea. Well, no, she for sure did not. That definitely.
No.
You know what England invented? Like flavorless food. And I say this as a person who deeply loves England. England invented damp weather and food with very little flavor in it. So that's what they can lay claim to. Again, all the affection in the world for the UK, but they don't get to lay claim to good curry or tea.
No.
Anyway.
But while we were speaking of tea, we were going to discuss there's tea in your books, Joanna, generally speaking.
And not the gossipy
yes.
kind.
No, not the gossipy kind, the kind that you drink. So why is there a particular reason that you're always writing tea into your books? And are there any Easter eggs that you generally put in all of your books when you can get away with it?
Well, I'm always drinking tea while I'm writing. And so sometimes I'm like, I don't know what's happening in the scene. So they're definitely drinking tea. And I wrote this scene. I don't know. I think it was in the rough draft, but Owen and his dad were up in the observatory and they were charting the stars and they drink cinnamon tea. And that's their like thing as they're doing their astronomy thing. They drink cinnamon tea. So that's the main tea in this book. And there is a scene early on where a messenger comes from the palace and Owen makes him some tea. And then he's very annoyed when this messenger lets the tea go cold and doesn't drink it. And he thinks, I should not have wasted my tea on this guy.
If people come to my house and they don't take a tea or a coffee or a hot chocolate, like it has to be a hot beverage, I don't invite them back to my house again.
I mean, that's
uncomfortable. You have to pick one and you have to take it from me unless you brought your own that you picked up on the way here.
Quick question. What do you do re-invite if a person comes to your house and eats all of your children's Halloween candy?
I thought you were going to say eats all of my children.
I thought so.
No, I did not do that last time I was there.
You told me it was Halloween candy. No one would ever be able to come over and eat all my children's Halloween candy because I have already eaten it.
Okay. Serious question. Joanna, cinnamon tea, is that like rooibos? Is that what that's meant to be? Or like chai?
Or like
I
apple
don't know.
cinnamon?
So Harney and Sons, which is my favorite tea brand, they make several different cinnamon teas. One is like a black tea that has cinnamon in it, and another is a rooibos version with cinnamon in it. And like the cinnamon is so strong and so sweet. It tastes like there's sugar in the tea, even though there isn't. And it's just so like strong and flavorful that I don't know. It just seemed to suit Owen and Watching the Stars. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I have apple cinnamon tea, and I call it my dessert tea, and I drink it after supper. So I related strongly to Owen and his cinnamon tea.
That makes sense.
I love it. I have rooibos that I bought the other day. It's decaf. I think it's decaf. I'm nervous because it's like clove supplements. I'm like, do I want to, is a supplement the same thing as a tea? I don't know, maybe. But cinnamon makes everything better. I once saw an Irishman who was like, Americans put cinnamon in everything. And I'm like, yes, we do.
Yeah.
Because it makes everything better.
Anna, I want to know if you have any Easter eggs that you put in your books.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I do. I know. Okay, I will tell you that I've got a book that's not out yet, or even like sold yet. But there are 2 characters in this book. 2? 3. No, wait. Yeah, 3 characters in this book who are just like their faces in my brain. It took me a while to like come around to realizing who I was writing about. But their faces in my brain are like friends of mine. It's very weird. It's very weird. And I didn't like
friends be able to tell when they read the book.
Maybe. I've told them because none of them are people that I like talk to on the daily. They're friends of mine, but like I felt like I needed to like clear it with them. Like, hey, this character, I'm writing a character, and I think you might have kind of inspired her.
And I stole your face for my character. Is that okay?
Is that okay? And they were all like, you did what now? I mean, none of them were like ultra weirded out. They were like, can I read it? Is she nice? And I was like, yes, she's nice. Like, I didn't take a witch and model her after you and then come tell you.
I'm sorry, but I am in one of your books. I would like to point that out already.
You are. You are, but like your much soured reincarnation.
Yes, but that's cool that your Easter egg is like whole people that you put in your books.
I hope it turns out okay.
Goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have Easter eggs?
Well, I've mentioned this before on Twitter, but I have this thing that's called the Cow of Redirection, where I always end up getting lost at some point with the plot. Inevitably, with every book, there's a point where all of a sudden I'm, moseying along, running through my synopsis, and I finish a chapter and I'm like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to get to my next plot point. So then I deploy the Cow of Redirection, which is I just write a scene where the characters encounter a cow, and every time it puts me back on track. And I've talked about it before, and if you read my books, you will find the cow at some point throughout the book.
Do you keep the cow scenes? Do you keep them in?
Oh, yeah, I keep them. I definitely keep them. I may not be able to in future because my agent knows about the Cow of Redirection now. But sometimes it's like a long scene and the cow is central to the scene, and sometimes it's just like the people see a cow on the side of the road and they're like, hey, look, a cow. But, it's just if I get a bit lost, I throw the Cow of Redirection in there and it redirects me.
Redirection.
I love that.
That's amazing.
That's my Easter egg.
Okay, you guys, I'm seeing a few questions pop up here on the sidelines. I think we maybe have like 1 or 2 more topics to discuss. But in just a minute, we're going to come take your questions. So just get them down. Get them down because I don't know. I don't know because then I want questions to be last. Okay, Joe, what are you working on now?
I am working on a book called Wind Daughter, which is a companion novel to Echo North. And it's about the North Wind's daughter who has to go on a journey to reclaim her father's lost power and save the world. That was the first time I did an elevator pitch for that book. So
I love that. Love it. Also, Echo North was the first book of yours that I ever read. It's your second book, but the first book of yours that I read. And I just loved it so much. And it was so fantastic.
Echo North is one of those books that 15,000 things are happening. And I'm like, she's going to drop one of these plates. You did not drop any of those plates. And I was danged impressed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, but
hopefully I can get this one up to snuff because it's only half done so far. So I need 4 drafts and I've been through 2. So there's a lot more needs to happen before it can see other eyeballs than mine.
What about you, Anna? What are you doing next?
So right now I'm working on my 3rd novel, which is called The Song That Moves the Sun. It is kind of it's sort of Dante's Paradiso with a little bit of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe thrown in there. Effectively, these 2 girls from Washington, D.C. meet these 2 boys who are from space. There is a problem with the music of the spheres. There's a disharmony in the music of the spheres. And they have to set out with these boys to correct it. It's their timeline paralleled with Dante, Beatrice, and Marco Polo as they travel the spheres of heaven, sort of exploring and visiting cities and building cities up there. So that is due out in summer 2022.
That sounds awesome. Are the DC girls aware that people exist in space, or is it a huge revelation that there are space boys? I just need to know.
They are not aware that there are people in space.
Oh, I like that.
Until the boys tell them and they're like,
come again?
Are you on drugs? What?
I love that. I love that. If someone told me they were from space or from the Fae realm, I would implicitly believe them. No questions asked. I'd be like, of course you are. I've been waiting for this moment. Welcome.
I'd be like, and I'm calling an Uber now. Hey there. And I'm going to go. I don't know. Joe, would you believe somebody if they told you they were Fae or from space or?
I probably would. Yeah. I probably would. And it would probably end up with me dead on the side of a road somewhere because I would just I totally believe you. I will definitely come with you. I would be the first person to die in the apocalypse. I mean, it's just facts.
And that's Laura's and my villain origin story, because then we have to go and hunt down whoever lied to you about being Fae.
I am not going anywhere. I would be in my apocalypse survival camp. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, well, this is my villain origin story then.
Okay, yes.
So
I'm very touched, Anna. Thank you.
Sorry. Fresh and air, Grandma. What can I say? Laura, what are you working on right now?
Oh, well, so in the fall, I have my 3rd book coming out, which is A Rush of Wings. It is a retelling of the fairy tale, The Wild Swans, or The 7 Wild Swans, or The 11 Wild Swans, whatever number of swans you want. In my version, it is 4 swans. Sorry, I had to count. I've changed the number of swans / boys a lot of times. Because the first time I did it, it was 7 swans, and my agent said, this is too many boys and too many swans. I cannot keep track of them. You need to get rid of some of them. So I cut some of them, and it was 5 boys and 5 swans. And then she said, it's still too many boys and still too many swans. You need to get rid of more of them. So now it's 4 boys and 4 swans, and nobody can make me change it again because I've already done copy edits. So I have that coming in the fall. It's not what I'm currently working on, though, because it's finished. I'm currently working on my fall 2022 book, which is called A Consuming Fire. And it is the story of a girl named Anya Estrella who lives in an alternate history England that has been cut off from the world for centuries. And within that England that is cut off from the world, she lives in a tiny village called Wetherell, which is cut off from the rest of England. And the girls in her village are raised to become sacrifices to this being called the God of the Mountain. And so her twin sister goes to be a sacrifice to the God of the Mountain, and she's supposed to live through it and spend the rest of her life maimed, having been a living sacrifice. But something goes wrong and she dies, and Anya sets out, presumably as an alternate sacrifice, but really her point and her quest is to go and get revenge upon the god, like Anna getting revenge upon Joanna's murderer. Yes. So those are two things I have coming up.
I'm so excited. I love reading all of you guys' stuff. Everything that comes out of your brains is beautiful and terrifying. I love it. Shall we take questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to scroll through these and just see what we've got. Let's see. We've got this no plot, only vibes comment that I am still dying laughing at.
Support it.
No plot, only vibes. Violets and their meaning. How did you all become friends? Were you in a writers group or a debut group together?
Okay, so a long time ago, I was entering Pitch Wars and did a critique swap where I met a woman named Jen Fulmer, who is in our critique group with us to this day. And Jen and I hit it off and became like full-time critique partners, got real serious real fast. And then she said, I have this friend, Joanna, and Joanna has been looking for another critique partner for a long time. And I think that your styles would vibe. So I ended up becoming Joanna's critique partner as well. So then it was me and Jen and Joanna. And I knew Steph Messa and Anna from Twitter, and we were all talking about living in a Victorian manor house together at one point. And I was like, hey, we should all have a group chat together and put everybody into the group chat. And then later our other friend, Hannah Witten, joined the group. And now we have this critique group of, what is that, 6 people? I have terrible math skills. 6 people, and we talk to each other like every single day and read all of each other's stuff. And it's really great. And I would have lost my marbles a long time ago if it wasn't for all of them.
This is like a 3-year running group chat.
Yeah.
And it's just never stopped.
No,
So,
every day we talk to each other. I talk to you guys more than like basically anyone except my children.
So that's our collective villain origin story. Joanna, we've got a question here for you. Talking about rabbit hole plot writing, are there any big choices that were in earlier drafts that got left out or changed?
The timeline in the beginning was a little bit different in the first draft. I had Owen, like the timeline was a little different. And so they were like building the railroad, and I had Owen go and be a cook for this like camp of people that were working on building the railroad. And so like his first time encountering tree sirens was when he was there, and like all of the people building the railroad got slaughtered and he like escaped.
Did they sing?
Did they sing?
Yeah, I've been working on the railroad.
Do not make me spit my tea out.
Obviously they did. And yeah, and I think in that version, he just like kind of glimpsed like the tree siren from afar and then just like ran away. And then that got taken out for a multitude of reasons. One of which, for certain things to work, like the railroad needed to already be built. So that got changed and then kind of replaced with that big train crash scene at the beginning. I love that
scene. It's so dramatic.
I worked really hard on that scene. I revised it like multiple times because it was hard to get it. It's hard to get it like visceral enough. And I am personally probably one of the most squeamish people alive. And so this is the most violent book I've ever written. But being the most squeamish person alive, I was like very like cognizant of not dwelling on all of the violence and the gore. So it's like there, but at least in my mind, I don't think that it's like dwelled on in like a gratuitous sort of a way. But it's like if you have a character who's a monster, you know, she's got to do monstrous things. You gotta go for it. If you're gonna do that, you gotta do it, you know. So I think that was one of the biggest changes. And in the second half, I got to write more king scenes in the second half than was originally written. So I will leave it at that to avoid spoilers.
Okay, let's see. We've got this is a pretty good question. This is for all of us. What happens when you can't think of a plot no matter what? I have at least 10 different projects that have no plot. I'm stuck on them no matter how hard I try.
Firstly, I cannot answer this question as I've been writing the same adult fantasy for 7 years and have restarted it 9 times and still don't have a plot. So I'm in the same boat with you and I feel your pain. Maybe Joanna or Hannah can answer this better than I can.
I feel like sometimes like books aren't ready to be written yet and you got to let them like percolate a little bit more, or sometimes you need to like squish ideas together, like squish several different book ideas together, and maybe they're just not working on their own. You got to squish them. I don't know.
That's a good suggestion.
Because sometimes you're like, okay, I want this to be like my road trip. Okay, well, this is a personal example. I had a book that was a road trip book, and then like an evil, magical, redacted book. And I was like, I really want to tell both of these stories. And I was sitting with a wonderful writer named Angel McQuaid, and she was like, squish them together. And I was like, okay, sure. And then 20 minutes later, I was like, squish them together. And it was like the amount of plot that resulted, because every premise I think has a little bit of plot with it. I feel like there has to be. But when you combine a couple of premises together, I think you can get some plot out of that. I also think motivation, like what does your character want more than anything? What do they want? What do they need? What are they after? And I think that sort of helps you develop plot. Sometimes too, just like pushing through something, push through to the end, finish it, even if it's crappy. You get to the end, and then sometimes you understand what you meant to be doing, and you can get sort of around to like the niceties of plots, you know, in second drafts, third drafts.
Or you could write a scene with a cow. That's also helpful. Would like to point out.
The cow of redirection.
Yes, you may need to put a cow in the book. That's my extremely professional and helpful input.
Cow of redirection.
Girl,
okay.
You two had great suggestions, by the way. Those sounded really good.
Let's see. A quickie. What's your favorite part? What's your favorite part about writing, world building, dialogue, revision, etc.?
I feel like my favorite part of writing is whatever stage I'm not currently in. if I'm like brainstorming a story, I'm like, gosh, I wish I was writing this. I wish I was drafting this. And if I'm drafting, I'm like, I wish I was revising. Drafting is terrible. And if I'm revising, I'm like, this is terrible. I need to have a new idea. And so yeah, whichever phase I'm not in. That said, though, I do, for the most part, enjoy at least like the initial brainstorming when you get to like play around with ideas and stuff. But lately I've enjoyed revising more than drafting. Drafting is terrible now. It didn't used to be, but it's like the last thing you worked on was this highly polished version of your story, and now you're back to like creating something out of nothing, and it's just dreadful.
It's dreadful.
Very hard. Yeah.
I'm exactly the opposite, where I used to love revising the most, and now I love drafting the most, because at first I would just revise kind of based on what I thought the story could use, or what, you know, some of my critique partners thought the story could use. But now I get really specific, really detailed feedback. So when I'm drafting, I'm like, no one can tell me what to do. This is the first draft. I can do whatever I want. So it feels very freeing, and like I'm being some kind of like petulant child, and I can just do anything. The world is my oyster. But my actual favorite part of writing is definitely dialogue. I know that that will come as a surprise to people who know that I talk about beautiful landscape descriptions a lot, and there's a lot of landscape descriptions and describey bits in my books, but I really love writing dialogue.
Nice. I like kissing scenes.
Oh, that's good.
I like writing kissing scenes.
Good.
I really like so when you're on contract, when you're working with a publisher, typically, you know, you've got your draft that you send to them, you know, you get a first edit letter, you know, that can be kind of a slog, because sometimes you're doing like, I mean, that's what I'm doing right now. You're doing a lot of reshaping, like fundamentally rethinking big chunks of the book, moving stuff around. That's hard. Second edit letter is usually a little bit more focused, but I love like the third edit. Once you're with your editor, I love the point where you're at, where you're not like, okay, I need you to completely rethink the logic of this thing, because I'm like, I don't want to use my brain. I just want to make words. I love when you're at the point where the book is almost where it needs to be, but you just get to like, just add like perfect little last touches. Like, oh,
Yes.
You get to tinker.
you get to like putter over it, you know, like, oh, this one paragraph, like I just want to make it like, I know this is the paragraph I want on the back of the book, and I get to make it as perfect as I possibly can. Like, I love that. I love it. It's very, I think what I'm saying is I really like working on prose. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of jealous
Yeah.
now, because I never get to do a third edit. I have never done actual line edits, because I'm super anal when I'm writing, like super anal. And I read everything out loud every single time I go through a draft. So like line edits are just not a thing that I've ever had to do, because it's always really like, I'm just really uptight. And so even in my first drafts, it's not like, go in and tinker with this paragraph. And now I want that. I'm jealous.
we'll talk about line edits later. Okay, we've got another question here. This is a really good one. What's a character you've written whom you adore but know you would not be friends with IRL?
Probably Ida from Beyond the Shadowed Earth. I love her, and we would probably not get along.
I think she's
very like abrasive and like strong-willed, and I would probably just get emotional and like cry in her presence, and that would make her irritated, and it just wouldn't work out.
She would definitely be mean to you, and you would cry.
Yeah, it's true. That's exactly what would happen.
I think, yes, she would. And Kobe, my character, Kobe Grimm, my rigger and the Beholder and the Boundless, is a real tough, no nonsense, works and lives on a ship. And I'd be like, you hurt my feelings. And she'd be like, suck it up, Buttercup. Like, I have a job to do. And I'd be like, okay, fine. So, yeah, same, Joanna. Thin-skinned babies.
And I would say that the main character of my book coming out this fall, A Rush of Wings, Rowena, and I would not be friends in real life. And it's not because she would make me cry. It's because we would have like massive blowout fights. My agent described her as being kind of a dick, but in a good way. And I feel like we're a bit similar. So I'm pretty sure we would just fight each other and just butt heads a lot.
So your character and you are too similar, and Joanna and I are just wusses. Okay.
It's true. It's true.
Is there any, I like this one a lot. Is there any writing advice you've gotten before that you don't agree with? If you could share one tip with aspiring authors, what would it be? I mean, I don't know about, I mean, I feel like there's an abundance of advice out there, but as far as like writing advice that I don't agree with, you don't have to write every day.
Thank you.
You don't. You like, look, it's not bad to hear gave some really good advice on like the frequency with which you should be writing. She said, she was like, don't make excuses for, what did she say? She was like, be gentle with yourself, but don't make excuses for yourself. She talked about how like people write in the direst of poverty. People write in like war torn like cities. They write from prison. So like at some point, if writing as a practice matters to you, you will pursue it. But also, life happens. Like there's, not every day works. If you've got children, if you've got pets, if you have an illness, if you know, have any sort of obligations, like at some point you're going to have an off day. So, and dreaming is writing, another saboteur point. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not written in a month since I turned in Wind Daughter.
Good for you.
Well, yeah, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get back because sometimes you need a break too. Your brain can't brain all the time. My favorite thing to tell people when they ask about writing advice is I think it's really, really important to find the writing and outlining and revising process that works for you specifically, because what might work for me or Laura or Anna does not necessarily mean it's what works best for you and how your brain works and how you operate. So find your writing process and stick to it, and don't let anyone, talk you out of it. Do what works best for you.
That's good advice. And mine is similar. Oh, the writing advice that I don't agree with would be the same as Anna. I think writing advice that write every day is terrible advice unless you're like a straight white guy who gets paid just boatloads of cash for whatever it is that you're writing, and your entire world and family is set up to support you writing every day, whereas that's not how normal people work. So yeah,
that if those are our remarks, you should be writing every day because we're waiting.
Yes, exactly. But as far as one tip that I would share with aspiring authors, the thing that I always say is that you should spend some time writing with abandon, by which I mean don't write saying to yourself, I'm going to write this to get it published. Write it just for the joy of writing it. Take creative risks, do it to figure out what your authorial voice sounds like. When I was in my mid to late teens, I wrote copiously and I wrote in really weird ways. I got super obsessed with Virginia Woolf and wrote this stream of consciousness novel about a child bride in a fantasy world. And I wrote the entire thing with my screen blanked on my laptop so that I couldn't see it and edit it. And it was just unhinged. Like, doing it was nuts.
You've told this story before and I still think it's hilarious.
And as unhinged as it was, writing that particular book taught me more about my authorial voice and the way that I like to turn a phrase and to build a character and develop a plot. It taught me more about all of that than anything else I've ever done. So take those creative risks and write with abandon, even if for you it does not mean writing a stream of consciousness novel about a child bride in a fantasy world with your laptop screen blanked out, which I hope it doesn't look like that for you.
I love that story so much. Okay, I think this is the last question. we're going to be able to take, and it's actually a really good one. What have you read lately that you really love?
Ooh. I'm going to leave the forest. Hang on a second.
I know, the time reaching. Joanna and I are both grabbing our visual aids.
Oh, let's see. Okay, here are two that I've really, really liked lately. First is Here It Comes, Piranesi by Susanna Clark.
Oh, I've heard that's so good. I really want to read it.
It's so good and hard to describe, but it's so good.
Yeah, I've heard
it's an adult fantasy, and it's just really lovely and hard to describe. You just should all read it. And then this book, Early Departures by Justin A. Reynolds, is so good, and it will 100% make you cry. It's a modern day YA with like a slightly sci-fi bent, and it's basically about this boy whose best friend dies, but then through technology, magic, he's able to be like brought back to life for like a few weeks so that like all his friends and family can say goodbye to him and stuff. And it's just like, it's filled with heart, and yeah, it's really lovely. And it will make you cry.
Sounds like it.
Fat chance.
Yeah. Pretty much everything makes me cry, but I mean, yeah.
Your book made me cry. Into the Heartless Wood made me cry, which, by the way, I am not a crier at all. My own books do not make me cry. Very few things do. But Into the Heartless Wood did. So props to you for warming the cold fish, as it were.
Oh my gosh.
What about you, Anna? What did you read recently that you really loved?
The entire Bridgerton universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So YA readers, this is not so much young readers, this is not so much for you. But for a while around the holidays, my brain just refused to absorb fantasy. It was like, we don't want this. I would really try to read and be like, doesn't compute. So I read pretty much all 8 Bridgerton books in the space of like 3 weeks. London, the season, people falling in love. Although, if you are YA aged, and or if you just in general prefer tamer content, which I totally understand that. I also read a book a couple of weeks ago called Sorcery in Cecilia.
That book is fabulous.
It's so good. It's an older YA. I think it came out in like the 90s or something, but it's about these 2 young women, Kate and Cecilia. Kate is having her first London season, and Cecilia is at her home in the country, and they're corresponding about happenings in London and in the country. And it's this version of England where magic is also a thing. So there's like the Royal College of Wizards, and magicians are doing nefarious things. And it sort of scratched that Bridgerton itch, but also was, again, like very like steam free, like 100% steam free. So if you crave that sort of Georgian Regency vibe, but are not so much for the racy, Sorcery and Cecilia. Hello?
Okay. Well, before I show my book, just for the sake of being a completionist, I would like to point out that somebody's friend asked the question, where do babies come from? And I already answered that, actually, when we were talking about Anna's thing in her book about the lunar eclipse, and you can just take whatever you want. And I said that I got my children from in a forest during a similar event. So I have answered the question, where do babies come from? We're checking all the questions off. We leave no question unanswered in this chat. And this is my book. It is called Becoming Wild. I'm a huge nerd. I read a lot of nonfiction. I read a wide spectrum of nonfiction. I really like especially books about animals and astronauts. So this book, Becoming Wild, says how animal cultures raise families, create beauty, and achieve peace. And it's a really beautiful, extremely fascinating. I keep reading excerpts to my poor beleaguered husband because I think it's so interesting, and I highly recommend it to everyone. And if you look, like, I have all of these tabs that I'm putting in and underlining things. It's fascinating. You should read it. It's a good book. And it's not a YA or a fantasy. I'm sorry. I'm not on genre.
We've got a range here. We've got a range. Well, we are now about 10 minutes over the hour, which I knew was going to happen because I love talking to you guys. And I'm going to continue talking to you guys, but the rest of you, unfortunately, can't be around for it.
Do we? One very last question came in. Do we want to answer it real quick?
Yes. Sorry. Wait. Nope. Wait. No. Have any of you written something that you dreamed, like in a dream while asleep?
Yes. Echo North started as a dream. Did you guys know that?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes. I dreamed about this girl, and she was like riding on a reindeer and being chased by wolves across a snowy landscape. And I wrote it down, and my brain was like, how about an east of the sun, west of the moon retelling? And that's where Echo North came from.
I once dreamed that I was at an underground fashion black market auction house,
Whoa.
bidding on shoes that celebrities had previously worn. And there was a boy there that I liked, and we were involved in something really desperate and nefarious. I haven't written that one into a book yet.
Yeah, I have not written anything that I dreamed into a book. I mean, probably the most interesting dream I had ever had. I was being held hostage in a movie theater by rogue librarians. So there could be something there, but I'm not so sure. Usually my dreams are not thematically appropriate for what I write.
The one thing you've never written during a time period where there was a movie. Wait, no, that's not true. That's not true.
They had like very early cinemas for Light Between Worlds. Yeah.
I'm still not clear on what the motivation of those librarians would have been.
I don't know either. My sister was there being held hostage as well. It was really inexplicable. They were just bad eggs. They were just bad librarians.
Amazing. Thank
Oh,
you.
I know. It was,
What?
we were at the movies and they wanted us to read books instead, or the book was better than the movie. That's what it must have been.
That is incredible.
All right, we just let everybody go.
Okay, guys, thank you for being here. You're all amazing. You can purchase Into the Heartless Wood from One More Page Books. Look at how beautiful the cover is. Your Instagram needs it. We will ship it to you. You can pick it up curbside, whatever you prefer. So get those orders in on our website. Also,
And you guys have signed book plates, right? Sorry.
we do. Yes, we do.
Yes.
The Voter on the Bound List and The Light Between Worlds and Treason of Thorns. All of them available at One More Page Books. Support your local indie. Okay, we're going to sign off here. Love you guys. Good night.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Bye.